juul.com/SwitchAmerica. That's JUUL.com/SwitchAmerica. And learn more information at JUUL.com/SwitchAmerica.
National headlines, Georgia State news and sports, and the local stories you care about. News Talk 1330 WLBB, Carrollton.
Here's Mike, the one you turned to audition.
Yeah, Bob Martin called and said that on Mike's end it went dark.
We heard him in your talk. Yeah. Good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome to the WLBB Community Voice Program, our show brought to you by Tanner Health System. News Talk 1330, FM 106.3, and this morning you can watch us and listen to us on Facebook Live, the News Talk 1330 WLBB page. I'm your host this morning, Colin Worthington. The gentleman you see sitting across from me, his name is Stu Shagawat, Executive Director of KidsPeace of Bowden, and he'll talk a little bit more as we get into our program. But the gentleman I'll bring on first is named Michael Slack. He was recently named the interim president and CEO of KidsPeace. And as many of you know, in the last month or so, KidsPeace is probably getting some attention. They're not excited about, not good attention, but it's a good program, and we'll talk about that program as well. And we'll also address those issues of them being in the news recently. But first of all, let me introduce Michael Slack, again, the interim president and CEO of KidsPeace, the national organization, and kind enough to join us this morning to give us the overall perspective of KidsPeace. I mean, their history and what they do for the communities and the kids that do attend there. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Colin.
And we do
pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we do appreciate you being able to call in this morning. Where are you calling in from? The headquarters, and where is that?
Yes, I'm calling in from our headquarters, which is in Schnecksville, Pennsylvania. In fact, I woke up this morning to a little bit of sleet, a little bit of snow, a little bit of rain, and I certainly had Georgia on my mind.
Well, see, I'm the opposite. I missed the snow. I can do without the sleet, but yeah, we've got rain here today. Well, Michael, give us the history of KidsPeace, and I believe a gentleman that had used to work with KidsPeace had told me that you were instrumental or a big part of bringing it to Bowden as well. So, if you wouldn't mind, give us the history of KidsPeace and how it did end up in Bowden.
Sure, my pleasure. Well, first of all, KidsPeace is a 137-year-old nonprofit organization. We were founded in the Bethlehem, Lehigh Valley area of Pennsylvania 137 years ago. Started as a small orphanage, and over the years since, we've expanded our services and really got into focus on mental health and behavioral health services for children, and more recently for adults. We operate in 8 states, Georgia being one of them, and we serve over 10,000 people a year in our services to bring hope, help, and healing to children, families, and those who love them.
Now, the children who do come to KidsPeace, how are they directed to these facilities?
Yeah, our children come to us from a lot of different areas, and as you'll find, a lot of the questions that you ask me really do depend on the service that we are providing, because we provide a fairly large range of different types of services.
Yeah, you mentioned adults. That was surprising to me that you were serving some adults. I mean, I think that I don't recall hearing that before, so that was new.
Yeah, and the adults, as far as directly serving adults, is a fairly recent thing. About 5 years ago, our board made a decision that we should expand our mission to include adults, but the reality is that KidsPeace had been serving adults since our inception, because most children have some adult that is attached to them. And although we may be directly providing services to the children themselves, indirectly we're always working with the extended family or their guardians or caretakers. So that was somewhat of a natural progression. But as far as the array of KidsPeace services provide, about 65% of the individuals we serve, we are doing so in the community. So we are either sending staff out to visit them in their homes. They are coming to an outpatient clinic that's an office in a local town, but we're serving them in their community. In addition to that, we operate therapeutic foster care services in a number of states where we're identifying and training foster families to take care of kids in their home. And then we have residential services, which is what we are operating in Bowden, and then finally we operate a 120-bed psychiatric hospital here in Pennsylvania.
We think about the residential services facility in Bowden. Is that state funded? Is this nonprofit?
So we are a nonprofit, but we are able to bill for a number of the services that we provide, and those funding sources come from a number of different sources. Education funding, because many of the kids that are all of the kids that are living with us residentially are receiving education services. So education is a big part of their treatment and their day. But then we do get we are able to bill for their room and board and treatment as well, and generally that is state funded.
When we think about, again, our local facility in Bowden, are these children who are there, do we consider is this part of a sentence as far as them residing them being at this facility? Is this a sentence for something they were involved in? Is it,
not necessarily a sentence. Generally, they're there to get treatment for some mental health issue that they have been dealing with. So they're identified as at risk somewhere in the system, and that can happen in a lot of different ways. And certainly Lou could get into the more specifics with you on how that works in Georgia. But in general, they're identified through the school system, could be through the family court system or the juvenile justice system as in need of treatment. They're directed to our facility, and we help them.
Well, when it's to the point they're directed to the facility, do they have an option as to whether not to be treated or not? I mean, are they in that kind of situation?
Yeah, often their families are a part of that decision process, so there could be multiple different types of placements that are options for them. Generally, there is an insurance company in some cases that is involved that's helping to determine the level of care that they need, and then they will be selecting, the type of program or the location of the program is often a driving factor in where they end up. Yeah, you had mentioned earlier a little bit about my experience in Georgia, and you're correct. When I started with KidsPeace about 18 years ago, one of my first projects was really in identifying a location in Georgia for us to establish a residential treatment facility. And that came after conversations with then Governor Barnes' administration about the extreme need for services in Georgia. And at that time, we were operating foster care services across the state, and they were finding that more and more children could not be handled in a foster care placement and needed a more residential-type program to meet their needs. And so we began looking for different areas that we could site a program, and we initially were focused on a closed hospital in the Augusta area, and that did not come together. And then we ended up finding the Bowden Hospital, which at that time was closed and was privately owned, and had begun really talking to them about citing the program there. That also did not work out, but in the process, we had such a good reception from the local community, the Carol Tomorrow, who we were working with, and the local chamber, that we were connected with the Bowden Hospital Authority, who worked with us on some land that they owned, and we built a facility from the ground up. And so that's kind of really how we ended up in Bowden.
Well, Michael Slack is the interim president, CEO of KidsPeace, the national organization. We're going to talk with Lou Shagawat, who is the executive director of the Bowden location of KidsPeace, after we take our first break. But before we let you go, Michael, is there anything that you want to make sure that we touch on? And to be fair, I mean, again, my interest in bringing you guys back on the program to talk about KidsPeace is because there has been some issues brought forth in our community recently. And I did want to give you guys a chance to talk about it, but I did want to get some, talk about those issues in particular, for our listeners and for the community. But is there any kind of point that you want to make, though, before I let you go?
Yeah, and I know that Lou will get into some of the specific challenges that we're having, at our program there in Bowden. But what I would want to leave you with is the fact that, KidsPeace is committed to the communities that we operate, we're first and foremost committed to the safety and the treatment of the kids that we treat. But we want to be a good community partner. We believe we have been in our 14 years in operating in that community. I have absolute confidence in the management team and Lou in particular in addressing the challenges that we've been facing in Georgia. And you can be assured that KidsPeace is making the resources available to Lou to make sure that we address those in a quick manner. So that's what I would leave you with.
When we talk about issues in general, do we see other KidsPeace facilities dealing with similar things?
There's a growing acuity of the children that we serve in many of our programs, and I'm not sure what that's a reflection of. In many ways, it could be a reflection of our society, but kids are coming to our programs with higher and higher needs. And what I'm most proud of is that KidsPeace continues to evolve. We continue to develop new treatment approaches, new ways to manage the trauma and the behaviors that come as a result of that trauma in the kids that we are seeing. And so I'm very proud of that.
Again, Michael Slack is the interim president and CEO of KidsPeace, the national foundation, and we do appreciate you talking to us at the beginning portion of this program, Michael. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
And,
at Tanner, we're advancing health.
Maybe I will finish this before we lead you guys into the break here. Again, thank you to Michael Slack. We'll take our first break here, come back and talk with Lou Shagawat. He is Executive Director of the Bowden facility of KidsPeace. And questions and comments, feel free to post them up on the Newstalk 1330 WLBB Facebook page during our live stream this morning, or you can call us at 678-601-8255, 678-601-TALK. And Josh is answering the phone this morning. He'll be sure and jot down your question and get that to us as we talk on this program. We'll come back with about 18 minutes left. Hope you'll join us after this break. Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System, Newstalk 1330, FM 106.3, and this morning on the Newstalk 1330 WLBB Facebook page.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
All right, welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice Program, our show brought to you by Tanner Health System, Newstalk 1330, FM 106.3. And this morning you can see us on Facebook. We are streaming live on the Newstalk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. I am your host, Colin Worthington. We're talking about KidsPeace here this morning. First segment, we heard from Michael Slack. He's the interim president, CEO of KidsPeace. We did kind of talk about the organization in more broad terms. Second and third segment, we're going to talk about the Bowden facility in particular. We brought in Executive Director Lou Shagawat, and we appreciate you coming in this morning.
Thank you for having us.
And again, we did organize this program this morning just after a couple of concerns, some issues from the Bowden community they brought forth to City Council. Second time they brought the concerns public in under a year, and we will talk about those and let you address those some more. But as we heard from Michael in that first segment, there's different facilities catering to different needs in throughout the nation.
That's correct.
And when we talk about Bowden in particular, what should we know about the young individuals who are there at that facility?
Well, at our Bowden campus, we provide residential care and treatment to kids aged 12 through 17 who come to us with significant mental health as well as behavioral disorders. Most of our kids have endured significant challenges in their life, honestly challenges that nobody should have to face, not alone a child. Many have endured physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, a life of instability, exposure to drugs, drug abuse, exposure to domestic violence, and sadly, even sexual exploitation and human trafficking.
And unfortunately, human trafficking, we heard a little bit about their situation, and this is, later on in their life, I guess, not the reason they were taken to KidsPeace in the first place. Perhaps how many beds are in this facility, and maybe how many kids are there right now?
Yeah, we service up to 70 children. I believe that we're maybe at 67 today. It changes on a pretty regular basis as children are discharged and new children come in.
As far as the people who work there, how many staff and what kind of staff is in that facility? Because these children are still getting educated throughout this process when they're there as well.
Yes, they are. Actually, through the course of their care, when they come with us, they receive intensive individual, family, group therapy, psychiatric services. They attend an on-site school that is fully accredited. We work very closely and in collaboration with Carroll County Schools. Their daily day, they live in a highly structured environment where we focus intensely on developing life skills and coping skills to help them be successful. We provide for all their health care needs as well as their spiritual needs.
And boys and girls in this facility?
60 boys, 50 boys and 20 girls.
And how are they separated, if they are separated?
Yes, they are separated. Actually, we were really thrilled with last year's achievement at expanding our facility and adding a new wing, which was really designed to be very trauma sensitive and specific to our girls and their needs. So our girls are now housed in our brand new wing, and then our boys are in the existing wing of the facility.
And I did mention, teachers. We do have teachers there that they're taking
certified
education
teachers,
as well. Yes. What about people who? There has to be more employees there. We have the executive director, obviously. We have teachers.
We do. We employ, as I said, certified teachers. We have both registered and licensed nursing staff. We have a licensed clinical therapist, in addition to, of course, our support staff and our direct care staff, our youth development specialists that come and provide for the daily care and supervision of the kids.
Lou Shagawat is Executive Director of the KidsPeace facility in Boughton, our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. What is the daily? What does an average day look like to the child at KidsPeace?
So an average day, our kids get awake at 7 a.m. and they do their morning hygiene and some morning chores, and then from there, they go into the cafeteria, they eat, they return to the living unit, and then off to school for the day. And then they're in school until 3 p.m. And then upon returning to the living unit after 3 is when a lot of the intensive therapy services begin. And at that point, they may be involved in a family therapy or individual therapy or group therapy sessions.
Is Saturday and Sunday the same as Monday through Friday, or do they see a difference?
No, we do a lot of structured activities on the weekend, off grounds within the community, as well as on grounds. We have a gym. We do a lot of activities in the gym, and as I said, on the property. Currently, some of our off-ground activities include taking a group of children to Rachel's Wish on a weekly basis for equine therapy. And then a couple of years ago, we partnered with the local animal shelter through a mutual connection we had. What we found was that the local animal shelter was filled with a lot of abused and neglected animals. And at KidsPeace, sadly, we serve a lot of children who have very similar experiences. So we've decided to bring the two groups together, and honestly, the animals have been a real source of healing for many of our kids who truly understand the impact of abuse and neglect.
Are these kids, are they able to have visitors, family, friends? Do they meet people in the community they can keep in touch with and communicate with?
Yes, they do. where we take our kids to church. We had a big event last year at Roopville Road Baptist Church, and a large group of our children attended that. They have visits with their families if they have a family involved in their life, as well as other events. We've historically participated in the Bowden Main Street and the parades, and are always looking for opportunities to integrate our children within the community and to help them grow.
How do you decide if this program is successful? How do you judge the success?
We judge the success based on their ability to cope and live day to day without significant disruption in their life. Average length of stay with us, varies between, I would say, 8 to 12 months for most of our kids. But we're looking for the same thing for our kids at KidsPeace that our listeners hope for their own children, and that is that they can ultimately live a very happy, successful, meaningful life.
Well, in looking for that judgment for success, do you have like a rate, percentage that you would deem successful when the students leave there?
I don't have exact numbers. I would say that our success rate is very good. We receive calls all the time from children that we've treated upward of 10 or more years ago.
And that's what I would hope. I would hope that you get those kind of responses after.
And it's pretty remarkable. Recently there was a 16-year-old boy who had come into our care several years ago, and he had faced a lot of neglect and abuse in his life. His parental rights or his parents' rights were terminated because of the abuse and neglect. But he was very fortunate at age 4 to be adopted. Unfortunately, he struggled with, pretty severe psychological and behavioral issues, and those issues escalated as he got older. Recently, he called us to let us know that he has successfully completed high school, graduated top of his class, and is engaged to be married.
Well, good. Congratulations to
Thank
him.
you.
And,
Congratulations to
congratulations
him,
to you as
really.
well. Yeah.
Yes.
Lou Shagawat is Executive Director for KidsPeace in Bowden, and he's our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. We'll come back with about 7 minutes, and we'll do that after this break. Community Voice on News Talk 1330, FM 106.3, and this morning on the WLBB Facebook page. Check us out there.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
All right, WLBB's Community Voice program, show brought to you by Tanner Health System, News Talk 1330, FM 106.3, and this morning on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. I'm Colin Worthington. Our guest is Lou Shagawat. He is Executive Director for KidsPeace in Bowden, and about 6 minutes left in our program. What is the percentage of referrals from DFACS and DJJ?
That, again, is very fluid. It changes from month to month. Right now, I would approximately maybe 60% of our children come from the Department of Juvenile Justice, the other 40% from DFACS. We have many children that are involved with both systems.
And I'd say this, the students, when the community might hear about the students or the children coming from DJJ, that might be their biggest concern. It might be what was resulting in their recent concerns publicly. I'm sure a lot of our listeners may have heard our stories and are aware of this. At least twice, I'd say, in the last year, a group of citizens in Bowden did go to City Council and express concerns and maybe ask for help or ask the city to work with you guys on maybe getting a fence or some other things. But the concerns that were brought forward, and you can talk about how real they are, and not to doubt that these people, the legitimate fears. Number of runaways, I think that's been verified. Significant number of runaways. There were concerns that maybe some kids had stolen a car. There were concerns that the kids had been in people's yards and they were just they were scared. I remember hearing an older lady talk about living nearby, and maybe some kids yelled some obscenities to her and said some mean things to her. And she was an older woman, didn't feel comfortable. And then, unfortunately, most recently, this past week, we had a number of runaways that ended up in Carrollton. A lady from Bowden allegedly solicited them to participate in prostitution. Those issues. I mean, obviously, we're not excited about having to deal with those kind of things. What's your response to those concerns?
Well, I'd like to start off and talk a little bit more about, you mentioned children from DJJ versus DFACS. I can assure you that the children's histories and backgrounds and difficulties that they face are identical regardless of the referral source. They have all been faced with just incredible challenges that, honestly, as adults, we ourselves would find it very, very challenging to cope and deal with. I could also tell you that many times that we often find that the children that are referred from the Department of Juvenile Justice are easier in many respects, whereas the children from DFACS less so. And let me explain. In a majority of the cases, although not all, children that are referred from the Department of Juvenile Justice still have families involved in their life. And with that comes support and a sense of hope. And sadly, many of the children that are referred to us from DFACS do not all have families involved and do not have the same level of support. So we do see an increase in a sense of hopelessness from the children from DFACS. But honestly, our approach has and will continue to be, kids are kids. We embrace all of them and love them all and treat them all based on their individual unique needs.
Well, Steve, I'd like to take the show till 6 minutes after the hour. If that's all right with you, because I think we can make it. We do have a lot of questions that are on the Facebook page I want to address as well. When I call or the media calls these kids runaways, when they leave that facility, are they legitimately runaways? Is that what they've done? If they run away from this facility, as in have they got away from? Are they doing something they shouldn't be doing? They shouldn't be getting off that campus.
Well, we are, first and foremost, we are a treatment facility and we are a non-secure facility. Yeah. So our goal is to provide good quality health care to these children, and we do that. We do it remarkably so. Our children at times do leave the campus without supervision or without permission. And when that occurs, we work diligently with the local authorities as well as our own staff to bring them back. Many of these kids, because of their experiences, struggle with that need to either fight or flight. They see this world as a very unsafe world, and they struggle to really trust adults. So when they're under any bit of stress, that impulse to run or to leave the campus without permission kicks in.
Well, what is being done to prevent them from, I guess, to minimize the number of students, the number of children that are able to leave the campus? What has been done? I guess what's in place now to keep that low number? Because I think, I want to say that that I'd heard maybe 40 students already this year.
Well, obviously, we take situations like this very seriously, and we work to help these kids get better because they do need therapeutic settings such as KidsPeace. And that's why we're always looking for better ways to address issues like clients leaving the facility without permission. We have recently been making some significant enhancements in our physical facility, as well as enhancing our training and resources to our staff with very remarkable results, especially within the last 5 weeks.
Let me tell Steve Graddick something real quick. You're going to have to put that on a manual so it doesn't already do a good deal. As far as the concerns that the community did bring before Bowden City Council, they were wondering why can't a fence be built out there? What's the KidsPeace response for that?
We don't believe that a fence will significantly enhance the security of our facility. We do believe that the changes that we have made have enhanced the security of the building while maintaining the therapeutic setting that these kids desperately need.
Tammy Ingram on our Facebook page, she's asked, as a community, what can we do to help these kids?
Well, that's a wonderful question, because I will say that without the ongoing support and love of the community, we would not be as successful as we have been. The community has embraced KidsPeace and has partnered with us since day one, and they contribute to the success of these children. Last year alone, we received a tremendous amount of support from members of the local churches, including First Methodist, Roopville Road, Midway Church, to mention a few, who ensured our kids did not go without Christmas, and ongoingly provide support to our children's spiritual needs. They pray for our kids, they counsel our kids. We even have Bible study on a weekly basis. Milltown Music Hall has been an ongoing source of helping us raise money and getting donations for our kids, things such as suitcases, hygiene products, games, sporting goods. People often ask me the question, suitcases, Lou, why are you asking for suitcases? And I will tell you, the reason we ask for suitcases and are in need of them is because when our kids enter our program, it is often in plastic bags. If they have anything. And when our kids complete our program, we refuse to discharge them in a plastic bag. So we need those suitcases so that when our kids leave, they have a means of bringing their personal belongings with us. Shucker's Oyster House last year took it upon themselves to raise money not only to purchase Christmas gifts for our kids, but to also help us to provide a Christmas banquet last year. And it was an amazing event. During this banquet, we had special guests including Babby Mason, Rona Bennett, Dr. Frank, who's an illusionist, and even our own Andrew Weaver came, volunteered their time, and performed and spoke to our children. We also last year received a unexpected call from the owners of Little Hawaiian, who reached out to us and said, Lou, we would like to provide Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas dinner to your children and staff. And they did so on Christmas Day and on Thanksgiving Day. It was really remarkable.
Lou, we've got about 3 minutes left in the program. As far as somebody who does want to help, how do they what's the easiest way for them to get in touch with you and say, hey, I'd like to be of some assistance here, if possible?
They can call our main number, which is 770-437-7200. We're always looking for volunteers. Again, we are a nonprofit organization and rely heavily on the support of the community, both financially as well as volunteering.
I think we could go a whole hour with this program, plus I'm getting some more questions in here as we get late. And this is a direct question. The 4 young girls who ran away this past weekend, were the security measures installed at that point?
I can't speak to any one child's specific situation due to security and privacy issues. But what I can say is, as I mentioned earlier, we've made some significant enhancements to our facility, which we have seen very good progress. I think the bigger issue is that of human trafficking that plagues communities both here and around the country. Oftentimes we think that human trafficking only happens in other parts of the world. It's a big problem. It's happening everywhere, even in our local communities. So I think what's most important is that the continued efforts of law enforcement, social service agencies, and others work combatively or cooperatively to combat this ongoing problem.
And I think our local law enforcement, I think they did get a head start on this. I mean, not before this particular issue, and not to say this was the first issue, but this is the first issue of that. I mean, really coming to the light here in West Georgia.
Sure is.
But I think our law enforcement had a big head start in studying up on this and getting ready for this eventuality, unfortunately. And I think they're still doing things to study up and learn more about that as much as they can. Again, we have 1 minute left, Lou. Let me give that to you. Do you want to give a big shout out to your staff? I mean, I noticed, looking at the website, I mean, I can see where you guys are looking for many individuals, and unfortunately, I imagine there's a pretty easy turnover with those kids. Maybe people not prepared for what they're about to face when they're working there. But the staff that you do have there, again, with a minute, you want to give a big shout out to them.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because to be really honest and frank with you, helping these kids is no easy feat. It takes a real special person who is patient, has a deep understanding of kids, and unconditionally loves them. Our staff are my heroes every day. They recognize that while scars may remind us of our past, it does not have to dictate our future. Many of our staff, regardless of their position, believe they are called to do this work. It has been an honor, really, to work with this group. Let me give you an example. Our HR manager.
I want to cut you off, Lou. We are out of time. I've stretched the program out. We are out of time, but thank you for coming out. And I do hope we talk to you again in the near future. Thank you for tuning in for this morning's Community Voice.